Sí, está bien.
Mas eu vou botar para outro, quando ela falar, vai aparecer ela em tudo.
Quem é
Ela
ela?
vai aparecer pequenininho ali.
Mas quem é a Cristina? Não, a Rosa.
Rosa,
Ah, Rosa Alegria, sim, sim, sim. Bueno, ¿podemos empezar? Empieza en español. Yo creo, ¿no? Mejor. Tá, então eu vou falar em inglês. Ok. Welcome to everybody. Tá transmitindo? Welcome to everybody. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to receive here at the Brazilian School for Advanced Studies at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Ibon Zugasti, who is the Deputy Director of the Millennium Project, which is a global foresight organization that is working very hard in the horizon of the futures, no? And he's also partner and director of Prospectiva, an European Institute for Future Studies and Strategy and International Project Management at the LQS Cooperative. In fact, the Institutes for Futures are many around the world, and they are doing a very interesting interesting work because they are really projecting the possibilities of the future. And as we are here in our program for formation and transformation in futures, this is really important. I think that this converge with our attempt to really complete the formation on futures, and the existence of such institutes of futures extremely important for our reflection. So I give the welcome. It's really a pleasure. Extremely important to have you, Professor Ibon Zugasti, with us, and I'm sure that you'll really profit very, very, very much from your presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ana Célia, and good morning to everyone that is here, also on Zoom and on YouTube, as this is an open class. Welcome to this first open class of our Futures of Work course. Today we will have a very special conversation about the future of work, more specifically the Work Tech 2050 report by the Millennium Project, and about scenarios for the future of work in the context of technological transformations. To open our class, we will have the participation of Rosa Alegria, which is a pioneer of strategic foresight in Brazil and has worked as a professional futurist for 26 years. She holds a master's degree in future studies from the University of Houston, Clear Lake, one of the world's most recognized institutions for the training of futurists. She is also a member of the executive board of the World Futures Studies Federation and was executive director of the global movement Teach the Future, which promotes futures literacy in primary and secondary education in 30 countries. In 2000, together with Professor Arnoldo Royos from PUC São Paulo, she joined the Millennium Project's network of nodes and co-founded the Brazilian node, the second to be established in Latin America. More recently, she became part of Foresight Fundamentals, a strategic foresight consultancy developed in partnership with futurist Peter Bishop. Rosa will give some opening remarks to contextualize the work of the Brazilian node and to situate the importance of future studies to Brazil. Rosa, thank you very much for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Yuri.
Thank
Muito
Sorry.
Vocês me escutam? Me escutam? Ok.
Sim.
Muito obrigada. Eu vou falar, acho que em espanhol, eu começo com o português e em honra ao nosso convidado Ibon. Buenos dias, Ibon e todos. Yuri, professor Yuri, professor Jano, professora Ana Célia. É uma alegria estar aqui. Quisiera agradecer a Universidad, al Laboratorio del Futuro, por acoger el proyecto Millennium en Brasil en esta nueva etapa, que tenemos nuevos liderazgos como Yuri, profesor Yuri Lima, profesora Jéssica Alves y Gustavo Machado en São Paulo. Mi gratitud especial a Yuri y al profesor Jano Souza, que puso todo el equipo, que organizó todo ese encuentro con profesora Ana Célia y todo el equipo. Bueno, desde 2022, el Laboratorio del Futuro pasó a formar parte, ¿no?, del proyecto Millennium en Brasil, y hoy contamos con esta fuerza cooperativa. También una enorme alegría contar con Ibon. Ibon, muy feliz por estar contigo. Vamos a estar aquí en São Paulo de aquí a unos días, en la PUC de São Paulo. O Ibon sempre tan activo, tan comprometido con la misión de ampliar, ¿no?, la reflexión sobre los desafíos y oportunidades de futuro. Bueno, Yuri me ha solicitado brevemente a hablar cómo todo comenzó en Brasil, ¿no? Bueno, Brasil se integró a la red del proyecto del milenio en el cambio del siglo, ¿no? En el cambio del siglo, el año 2000. Era un momento, el mismo año en que estuve estudiando por el primer año del programa de maestría en Houston. En la época, el pionero programa, que no había otro. Además de, bueno, había otro programa en ciencias políticas de Hawái, coordinado por Jim Dator, pero el programa amplio de estudios de futuro es el primero en el mundo en Houston. Bueno, este era un momento de muchos cambios, ¿no? Internet comenzaba a ampliarse, conectar el planeta, los ODS, los Objetivos de Desarrollo, también la globalización avanzaba muy rápido, un entusiasmo inmenso sobre lo que vendría el siglo XXI, muchas incertidumbres, ¿no?, que han crecido, ahora más, tenemos mucho más. Y observando el mundo actual, podemos ver que la incertidumbre no, todavía se ha cargado de una gran porción de desesperanza, ¿no? Porque el siglo pasado teníamos más sueños, más promesas, que a partir de este siglo se han disminuido. Bueno, como dije, fue el mismo año cuando estuve en Houston estudiando la maestría. Mira, hoy esto puede parecer natural, ¿no? Una persona estudiar foresight, que en esta época no había este término tan popular, foresight, era estudios de futuro, que era algo más académico. Pero en aquella época, prácticamente nadie en Brasil sabía qué eran los estudios del futuro. No existían cursos, comunidades organizadas, ¿no? Estas asociaciones que hoy proliferan mucho, por suerte, se han popularizado. Bueno, yo muchas veces tenía que explicar que yo no estaba estudiando para ser una cartomante, una que lee tarot, una que hace previsiones. Tenía que explicar antes, siempre antes de hablar con el público. Bueno, fue en Houston donde tuve la oportunidad de estudiar con Peter Bishop, a quien muchos de ustedes deben conocer, ¿no? Y Peter me presentó el proyecto del milenio. Me dijo que yo necesitaba conocer a Jerome Glenn y a Ted Gordon. Entonces me entusiasmé mucho y fui a participar de una conferencia en el año 2000 en Buenos Aires, en que en aquel momento el primer nodo de América Latina estaba actuando en Argentina, bajo el liderazgo del profesor Miguel Gutiérrez, un gran nombre en América Latina se dice Prospectiva, ¿no? Un gran nombre latinoamericano de la Prospectiva. Ahí sí tuve contacto con Jerry, lo conocemos como Jerry Glenn, y Ted Gordon, que nos dejó hace 2 años, Bueno, son dos íconos, ¿no? Jerry Glenn y Ted Gordon son dos íconos de todo lo que se relaciona a estudios de futuro en el mundo. Bueno, la orientación era clara. Brasil debía integrarse a la red, porque no había más países además de Argentina. Y Brasil era un gran país, muy importante en la región. Entonces conocí a... Peter me habló de un profesor de la PUC de São Paulo, profesor Arnoldo, y yo fui a él, y al profesor Arnoldo de Hoyos ya coordinaba de forma pionera en São Paulo, en esta época, uno de los primeros grupos de investigación de futuros del país y desempeñó un papel fundamental. Entonces, la visión académica de Arnoldo, la capacidad de articular, ¿no? Permitió a Brasil construir toda esa presencia en la red global. Yo diría que gran parte de lo que se logró en los primeros años del proyecto Milenio fue posible gracias a su liderazgo y todo el entorno, ¿no? de investigación creado en la PUC São Paulo y así como ahora estamos con la Universidad Federal de Río de Janeiro. Bueno, a partir de esta colaboración nació el nodo, ¿no? A veces decimos nodo, en portugués a veces parece un poco raro hablar en nodo, ¿no? Yo hablaba en núcleo, pero vamos a hablar nodo, porque es común en español también. Y así comenzó una relación que integró Brasil en una red global de inteligencia colectiva. Esa es la clave, ¿no? El gran Ibon va a hablar mucho sobre eso, creo. Inteligencia colectiva es lo que nortea la actuación del Millennium Project. Bueno, cuando entramos en la red global, el proyecto Milenio tenía 4 años, entonces fue creado en 96. Y todo a partir de una idea muy innovadora, muy revolucionaria, ¿no? Porque ningún país, ninguna organización, ninguna universidad, ningún especialista podría comprender todo lo que se pasaba en el mundo, todos los desafíos solo, ¿no? De forma segregada, separada. Entonces, teníamos ahí en esa época de 96, ustedes todos se acuerdan, ¿no? De la Río Eco 92, ¿no? El cambio, la cuestión de los recursos naturales, desarrollo sostenible, que era un tema nuevo, los avances tecnológicos, de educación, bueno, todos los temas que afectaban la existencia de la humanidad y el planeta. Así nació el proyecto Milenio, ¿no? Bueno, a lo largo de estos 26 años en Brasil, tuvimos la oportunidad de contribuir para la construcción global de muchas maneras. Un marco que me hace falta, ¿no? Yo me acuerdo con mucho cariño, fueron los encuentros con el futuro, ¿no? Durante aproximadamente 15 años realizamos encuentros a cada mes en la sede de la PUC São Paulo, en el gran auditorio, con figuras ilustres sobre diferentes temas, como Don Beck, Hazel Henderson, Tim Mack, Carlo Petrini, bueno, muchos nombres de Brasil también en diferentes temas. Y otro marco es 2004, ¿no? Cuando tuvimos el honor de organizar en São Paulo, también en la PUC, la primera reunión internacional del Comité de Planificación del Proyecto del Milenio. Todos los años íbamos a Estados Unidos, en diferentes ciudades, nos reunimos alrededor de los temas, de los desafíos, pero en 2004, la primera vez que el comité se reúne fuera. Bueno, yo estuve con el profesor Arnoldo organizando, ha sido muy vibrante, ¿no? Más de 20 y tantos futuristas de diferentes partes del mundo. Y no puedo dejar de mencionar en esta historia la actuación del profesor Ladislau Dalbor, creo que muchos de ustedes conocen, ¿no? Gran economista social que ayudó a acercar los estudios del futuro a los campos de la economía y la administración, en Departamento de Economía y de Administración, y promovíamos diálogos entre distintas áreas de conocimiento entre los dos departamentos. Apoyamos diversos estudios globales también. Esto, la esencia del proyecto de Millennium ha sido siempre realizar estudios globales con diferentes voces, diferentes disciplinas, diferentes especialidades, ¿no? Algo interdisciplinario. En Brasil reuníamos especialistas para contestar a los Delphi Studies, los cuestionarios y las proyecciones de escenarios. Bueno, han sido muchas cosas, ¿no? Estoy hablando apenas de algunas. Y bueno, en especial el estudio, trabajo y tecnología, que es el tema de hoy, ¿no? Entonces, agradezco siempre al equipo del Laboratorio de Futuro por haberlo traducido, hacerlo popular, ¿no? Abierto al público. Es un estudio increíble, ¿no? Es el primer estudio que, además de mapear los desafíos, la problemática de la cuestión del trabajo en relación a las tecnologías, indica respuestas, soluciones, caminos, ¿no? De una forma muy visionaria, como todo lo que se hace a partir de los estudios coordinados por Jeremy Glenn, ¿no? Y Ted Gordon y todos que están en el proyecto. Bueno, desde 2022, como dije, la Universidad de Río está con nosotros, ahora bajo un nuevo liderazgo. Y hoy estamos con profesor Yuri, Jessica y Gustavo. Bueno, esto es una oportunidad de ampliarnos nuestras visiones y traer un poco la visión, ¿no? De cuánto se cambió desde el año 2000, cuando iniciamos, ¿no? Los smartphones, toda esa tecnología, la propia Internet. El cambio climático todavía no estaba en el centro de los debates como una amenaza. Una cosa muy especial, muy pocas mujeres actuando en el campo del estudio de futuro, ¿no? Yo cuando iba a las reuniones, las primeras reuniones en Estados Unidos del proyecto Milenio, éramos cuatro mujeres y eran 25 hombres, ¿no? Entonces era algo un poco desigual, ¿no? Inequitativo, pero ahora tenemos mucho más mujeres de todos los continentes. Yo no sé, Ibon, si puedes decir cuántas somos, yo no sé, pero tal vez más que hombres, ¿no? Entonces mucho se avanzó. Una participación más equilibrada. Y bueno, las preguntas son las mismas, tal vez con diferentes respuestas, y esta es una oportunidad en esta clase de pasar por todas ellas, estas preguntas y caminos, y es esto. Agradezco mucho la oportunidad de hablar un poquito de la historia, esto me emociona mucho, la historia de una estudiante brasileña que viajó a Houston para aprender el futuro y bueno, trajo una disciplina prácticamente desconocida en su país. Es una alegría ver que en la universidad, en el programa estamos en cargo ahora de seguir con esta disciplina tan importante para el mundo, tan importante para el mundo. Entonces, deseo una clase muy rica, muy, muy divertida, y un abrazo a todos ustedes. Yo no escucho lo que hablan. No sé si pueden abrir el micrófono.
Desculpa, Rosa. Thank you for your words and for for situating the work of the Brazilian node of the Millennium Project. I was also thanking you for your pioneering work in the area of future studies in Brazil. And I think this opening will help us connect with the global work of the Millennium Project and also situating our own context in Brazil and our history. So thank you for that. A round of applause again, since you didn't hear. Thank you. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our main guest speaker, Ibon Zugasti. Professor Ana Célia spoke a little bit about him, but I'll give his full bio. Ibon is director of Prospectiva, the European Institute for Foresight and Strategy, president of the Spanish Node, and global deputy director of the Millennium Project, associate fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science, and a founding member of the Red Iberoamericana de Prospectiva, RIBER. Since 1999, he has led numerous projects in strategic planning and foresight. He has also contributed to several sectoral studies and corporate strategic plans for organizations such as Telefónica, Repsol, and Guggenheim, and as well as to foresight and strategic projects in the public sector at the international level. He has participated in the design and implementation of observatories and strategic intelligence systems for several organizations and served as an advisor for the Foresight Unit of the European Union's Committee of the Regions, the European Commission, the World Bank, and several governments around the world, including the United States, Canada, Uruguay, Colombia, and Chile. Today, Ibon will deliver the main lecture of our class, bringing the key findings, scenarios, and provocations from the WorkTech 2050 report. Ibon, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Obrigado, Yuri. Very good morning, bom dia a todas y a todos. It's a great pleasure for me to be here at CVAE this morning after the wonderful also session we had last Friday at the campus with Jano and the team, the technology team, where we talk long and deep about the future of AI. But this morning we are going to talk about the future of work and technology, a little bit also on AI. If you want, we can talk a little bit more on that, but mainly about the future of work and AI and technology, sorry. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to the CVAE director, Jury. Thank you so much for the invitation to the Millennium Project. Thank you so much also to my colleague Rosa Alegría, if she's still there watching, for arranging this session. Also as a way to strengthen our cooperation with the Millennium Project node in Brazil. Very active node since the beginning with Rosa and with Arnoldo. I would say that it's one of the most active nodes in the Millennium Project and probably the most active in Latin America together with Mexico. So it's been a great pleasure to work with Rosa and Arnoldo. And we will continue this conversation also on Thursday in the PUC San Pablo, talking about good futures with Professor Arnoldo de los Hoyos and other colleagues there, including my friend Ladislao Dubrov. And if any of you are around São Paulo, you are welcome to come also to the talk at the PUC São Paulo in Perdicious on Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. in the morning. So I think we are all set with the introductions, and maybe we can already start a little bit talking about the future of work. I learned from Jury that this class is about the future of work, which is wonderful, knowing that there is such a training and learning activity in a very much complex issue like the future of work, which is not a single issue. It's a perfect field for foresight, because we are talking about complexity. We're talking about different elements interacting in a field, but coming from different factors and a lot of interactions to the future of work, which needs to have longer term views, but also short term management when dealing with that future of work. And I would say at the very beginning that we are going to see incredible things in the next few years. In the field of technology, especially what we are going to see in the next probably 4 to 5 years, we have never seen anything like that, especially what relates some new technologies, and mainly those related to AI. But let me start a little bit, and I think the idea with the session is that I will give this talk for around 1 hour or so. But please stop me anytime if you have any comments, any questions, any critics, any ideas. So let's do this as interactive as possible. I know that some of the people are also participating online. So if there are any questions also, we can take them. And then I think we will open time for analysis, comments, and maybe next steps. It would be wonderful also to think about working together from today on this very, very amazing issue. So let's start a little bit. A few words on the Millennium Project. Well, I think Rosa Alegria was already giving a wonderful summary of what the Millennium Project is and what the Millennium Project node in Brazil has been doing in the last more than 20 years. But let me summarize it a little bit. So the Millennium Project was started within the United Nations, actually at the United Nations University. But from the very beginning, the project idea was a spin-off within that university, United Nations University, to create an independent think tank. So the whole idea was to have an independent thinking, as think tanks should do. But by the way, talking about the think tanks, I don't know if you know that there was until recently a whole global movement of think tanks, a community. That community was coordinated by the University of Pennsylvania, by Jim McGann, who was the leader designing the rankings of the annual ranking of best think tanks in the world, including more than 7,000 think tanks. And by chance, we had here in Rio de Janeiro the last global summit of the think tanks hosted by Fundação Getúlio Vargas in 2019. Maybe any of you took part on that. It was an amazing summit, but the sad part of it was that Jim McGann sadly died a few months after that summit, and the whole program was stopped. So today there is no more ranking of think tanks by the University of Pennsylvania, which is a big thing. I know that some other universities, I think one from China at least, is doing a global, trying to do a global ranking of think tanks. But there is nothing like there was before with the University of Pennsylvania. And the Millennium Project, I'm telling you this because the Millennium Project was included in that ranking of think tanks. We were a very singular think tank because most of the think tanks, they don't do much futures research. They do more analysis on the future, on issues related to geopolitics, to climate change, to social issues, to economics, but not so much on futures research. So we were, and we are still quite singular in that community. And we say that the Millennium Project acts like a trans institution. So we don't consider ourselves only a think tank. We want to be a trans institution because we have this set of more than 70 nodes worldwide. And the nodes are supposed to represent what the Millennium Project represents also. The idea of not only having UN organizations, but also UN organizations and governments, and also NGOs and foundations, and also corporations and private sector, and also universities and academia. Why? Because we talk about global challenges, and we think that we need a global governance for that. So not only the governments, not only the UN, not only the public sector, not only the private sector, academia are going to solve those big or address those big challenges. It's a matter of all of us to work together to try to address those very complex issues we are going to face in the next few years. So the Millennium Project was created in 1996 as a result of two big feasibility studies where we set the grounds for that idea of the global challenges. And still today, here we are fighting for promoting the idea of future research globally. So another big feature of the Millennium Project is that we always try to connect global perspectives with local perspectives and regional perspectives. So we are not one of those think tanks that only thinks globally. We try to go in deep to the ground with our nodes, and we have those conversations integrating global and regional views on our work. And this is why the Millennium Project started with 8 nodes in 1996. Today, we have more than 70 nodes worldwide. One of them is Brazil. We have another one in Spain that I'm chairing, but we have several nodes in Latin America, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and we are growing more and more. So the idea with the nodes is that they connect these local views, they translate our work, they also organize locally the workshops related to the research we could be doing, and so on and so on. So what is the beginning of the story with this research, this project on the future of work and technology? So we had this idea of the inevitability of new economics and changing the social contract. What is happening today? So we saw that was around 2015, 2016. You might remember that the World Economic Forum at that time was already talking a lot on the future of work. And they had this sometimes a little bit catastrophic view when they were only saying that the technology was going to replace more jobs than create new. So that was their view at that time. And seeing that, we thought that it was the time for us to apply futures research to think about alternative futures, because there is a catastrophic and negative future ahead of us. We know that, but we could have better futures also. And we thought it was the time to think about that and to try to connect what could happen to get into those different scenarios. You know, in the scenarios, we always have the idea of cause and effect. So things could happen in a way, and there could be a lot of things happening, and cause and effect effect links that could take us to those different scenarios. And this is the whole idea with the scenarios, so that we can understand what could happen, and as a result of that, what we could do to go to a better scenario instead of ending in the worst scenario. So the concentration of wealth is increasing. It was increasing at that time, and we see that it is increasing today. We are all aware. Last Friday, we had for the first time the first trillionaire ever, Mr. Elon Musk. As a result of the SpaceX IPO public offering, humanity saw for the first time one person becoming a trillionaire. Talking about the concentration of wealth, and talking about the concentration of wealth related to technology. So we are quite aware of that. Income gaps are widening. Income gaps, not only there's a big concentration of wealth, but the income gaps from comparing rich and poor people are widening. And this is a paradox also, because we see that poverty is being reduced more than ever. So we have record low levels of poverty worldwide, especially because China and India, those big countries, managed to get a lot of people out of poverty in the last decades. But at the same time, we have the highest income gaps ever. So this is a paradox for us, for economists, that having low poverty and growing income gaps, and this is something that we need to address. In our case, my institute belongs to a large cooperative group in Spain. It's called Mondragon. We are on industrial activities. It's actually the largest. It's called Mondragon. Mondragon, yes. And this is the largest industrial cooperative group in the world, with around 70,000 people and $12 billion annual income in our activities. We do industry, retail, finances, and knowledge. Those are our 4 main areas. And in Mondragon, we are an ecosystem of worker-owned cooperatives. So the idea with the worker-owned cooperatives, and especially with our system, is that we try to create more jobs, but at the same time try to reduce income gaps. In our organization, we have a salary gap of 1 to 6. I don't know of any other business organizations in the world which are size of more than 70,000 people with a salary gap of 1 to 6. And we've been alive for almost 80 years now. So this is feasible, this is possible, it works. And as I will tell you a little bit later, it's a way to try to reduce income gaps that are widening otherwise. Employment-less economic growth seems to be the norm. So we see more and more business activities that have less jobs to do more business income. I would say that at the time we started with this research, the big case was, I don't know if you remember when at that time Facebook and then Meta bought WhatsApp. When they bought WhatsApp, they paid around $10 billion to buy the company, WhatsApp, and the company WhatsApp had less than 100 employees. So they were buying the data, all our contacts. All of us probably have WhatsApp, and all our families and all our friends and so on. They bought millions of data. They paid for that, but the company that they bought, WhatsApp, they had less than 100 employees. So this is the norm nowadays. Return on investment in capital and technology is usually better than labor. That's a reality. If you see this kind of business activities, those that have less employment usually have higher returns. And today, more and more on technology-intensive activities. Future technologies can replace much of human labor, even if this didn't happen in the past. When we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, in the three other industrial revolutions that we had in the past, this never happened. So there was a concern that in the past also that those revolutions were going to destroy more jobs than create new, but this didn't happen. They always created more jobs than they destroyed, the other three industrial revolutions. What could happen now? We will see what could happen, but this time it could be a little bit different. Long-term structural unemployment is a business as usual or surprise-free trend forecast. What can we do about it? So we have this map, this initial map. Now let's think what we can do about these future scenarios. So the methodological approach of the project was we started with a literature and related research review. Then we did the first real-time Delphian questions not asked or poorly answered in the past. We had the first draft of the 3 global scenarios to 2050. Then we had another 3 separate real-time Delphis for feedback on each scenario. So this was like second round. We had the final scenarios given for the Millennium Project nodes. We gave those scenarios to the nodes so that they could start the national workshops. I think you had some in Brazil also at that time. To discuss, we also were doing those workshops in Spain, in Madrid. I remember Fundación Telefónica was helping us on doing those workshops. We had the national workshops to explore long-range strategies that are and were different in each country. Many of them related, but some of them different from the case in Finland, in Spain, in South Africa, in Sri Lanka, in Japan, or in Panama. We did collect suggestions from the national planning workshops, distilled into 93 actions, and assess all via 5 real-time Delphis. And we had the final report for public discussion that today, 8 years after we finished the work and tech research, we are still discussing and updating the last learnings. So as a beginning, to think about especially the future of technology and what could happen in respect the evolution of technology, and especially thinking about what could be the main breakthrough that, as you know, it's mainly AI, artificial intelligence, the future of artificial intelligence. This could be one of the main reasons why this time, with this 4th industrial revolution, things could be different to the previous other 3 revolutions we had. In the future of AI, and this is what we are analyzing right now with the other research that I was talking about on Friday with the team. We differentiate 3 types of AI. What we have today is what the experts call artificial narrow intelligence. So it's basically an AI where humans still tell machines, tell the AI what to do. So the AI has no capacity to decide on its own. This is where we are right now in terms of artificial intelligence. Next level is what the experts call artificial general intelligence. So this would be an AI that could have capacities similar to human beings. So this AI could be able to make its own decisions. This AI could have capacity to write its own codes. This AI could have capacities to set its own targets and aims. So we have not yet get into here, but what happens is that the experts are telling us that in the past they thought this could happen in around the 2040s. Now what they are telling us is that this will probably start quite soon, maybe in 2-3 years. So we are not going to get full artificial general intelligence in 2-3 years, but we are going to start having what the experts call early AGI around 2-3 years. So this is going faster than we thought in the past, and this is why we are working on those scenarios. And the next level could be what the experts call artificial superintelligence. And artificial superintelligence could be a technology that would have higher capacities than human beings. This is the one that is a little bit closer to these Hollywood movies of Terminator and so on. So this is still quite far, but it is very important that in this transition from narrow into general, this is now when we need to design the global governance of this technology. This is what we were discussing on Friday with the team, at the Universidad Federal de Rio. And this is a breakthrough also for the future of work, because this could be the reason why this time the impacts of technology in the work market, in the labor market, could be worse than in the past. So this could take us to a situation where more jobs are destroyed than created.
Let me ask
Yes.
just one question. This global governance is mainly a question of United Nations. How is this being prepared? The global governance for artificial intelligence in NU, in United Nations. Is something going on already?
Yes, there is a lot going on, and we are pushing the United Nations to have even more.
Are at the United Nations? No, you were at the very beginning.
Well, let me remind, we are independent to the United Nations. We are not part of the United Nations, but we advise the United Nations, and especially on this issue. This is a very critical issue for the future of humanity. Could be a breakthrough and could bring a lot of good things. A lot of, I mean, AGI could be a very, very good thing. Could help us fight cancer, could help us reduce dramatically the number of traffic accidents and people being killed, could help us address climate change. It could be a very, very good thing that humanity has almost never seen. But on the other hand, this could be also a reason for an existential risk. So this is why it's very challenging. It could be the best or it could be the worst. We are having conversations with the United Nations through what we call the United Nations Council of Presidents of the General Assembly. This is a body an organization that is not very well known, but this is the organization that works and advises the General Assembly President. In the General Assembly in the United Nations, we have the Secretary General, now Mr. Guterres, and soon a new person coming. But in the General Assembly, there is usually a president, and this person has a term only for 1 year, which is very tricky because by the time they have an agenda, it's time to change. So this is why they created this UN Council of Presidents of the General Assembly to try to connect all former presidents of the General Assembly and try to work in an agenda that is been connected all over the time. So we've been working with them on this idea of the global governance of the transition from artificial narrow intelligence into next artificial general intelligence. We have come up with a report with some concrete actions that United Nations, the governments, and the whole society, private sector, and so on needs to start now to address that global governance. So you can, it's for free. I mean, it's public. You can go to our website and check that report. It's not a very long report, and you have all measures. And if you are connected, by the way, to the Brazilian government, we would be very happy to also talk to you and see how we can also work with the governments to connect the national governments with the General Assembly and see how we can push this issue a little bit ahead, because it's a very, very important.
I think that we are ready in Brazil to do this because all the programs, all the politics, all the policies related to AI and everything. So our national plan. So I think that our government are really ready to do it, to be part of it. And they will be really happy to do so.
Excellent. Tomorrow I'm going to meet the Minister for Telecommunications in...
So you should meet someone from the Ministry of Management of Innovation in the Public Sector, MPI.
Excellent.
Because this is the one that is related with it. Esther Dweck. Okay. Professor from Federal University of Rio de Janeiro.
Super. If you can connect us, that would be wonderful.
Oh, yes, we can connect.
Yes, because we need to run a little bit on this issue of transition to HEI. We think now the main priority is that we call for a UN General Assembly session to talk about HEI and the impacts of HEI. The problem that we see is that everyone is talking about AI today, and all governments and the European Union and so on, but they talk about artificial narrow intelligence. They don't speak about artificial general intelligence, because this is not here. It's coming soon, but it's not here. That's why they speak about the past. They speak, if you look at the, one moment, if you look at the new EU AI directive, it's talking about narrow intelligence, no word about artificial general intelligence. And that's the beginning of the problem, that we are regulating something from the past. We are not regulating, which is usually natural. It's very difficult to regulate something that is coming in the future. But the problem is that this HEI is coming very soon and will change many, many things in the business sector and also in geopolitics. Yes?
I don't know if I missed any information, but I didn't quite understand how the parts of that compose the Millennium Institute act. How do, for example, the government work in the Millennium Project, or the university go there, or is there any meeting, a regular meeting? How does this work? Thank you.
Yes, the idea on our interaction is that when we have the nodes are need to connect these five, let's say these five sectors, or these five realities, these five stakeholders when they are creating the nodes. So in my case, in Spain, I need to share what we do in the Millennium Project with the UN organizations in Spain, like if there is a UNESCO office in Spain, or if there is an ILO connection or whatever, I need to do that. I'm also in contact with the Spanish government and regional governments, also with NGOs, with the private sector, and with academia in Spain. So we need to share our work and get their feedback. And now our CEO, Jerome Glenn, is asking all our node chairs, like Rosa or Yuri or me or others, to connect our governments to see how they can push the UN General Assembly to have a special session on AGI. That's our task, let's say. Yeah, that's. So, but if you want, we can talk a little bit more on this idea of the governance of AI later on. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue a little bit. So AI is the main technology breakthrough, as you all know, but it's not the only one. At the beginning of this research, we were talking about the next technologies. Imagine how next technology synergies will create new businesses. So it's not only about AI, it's about robotics, synthetic biology, computational science, cloud and big data, artificial and augmented reality, nanotechnology, Internet of Things, everybody, the semantic web, quantum computing that has changed and has advanced so fast. When we started with this was in 2018. Now in 2026, we have such different quantum computing ecosystem. Even in my city, we were talking about San Sebastian. You know, San Sebastian, it's a very small city, similar to Rio de Janeiro, very beautiful with a bay and the beach. And in San Sebastian, but many people don't know that we have a very advanced quantum computing ecosystem. And this is the only city in Europe that has an IBM 2 quantum computer, which is a massive, it's a $40 million facility. And the reason why we have it there in the city is that because we have a whole ecosystem there with the academia, with the business sector on quantum computing, with the regional government and so on. So quantum, it's coming very fast also. Telepresence, intelligence augmentation, collective intelligence, blockchain, 3D, 4D printing, drones, conscious technologies, and especially the synergies among all of them. This is the, let's say, the perfect storm that is coming. So the old way of seeing the future of technologies was linear and separate. So these technologies could advance faster or slower, or in a more slowly way. But they were all considered to be separate in the old way of understanding the evolution of these technologies. The future way or the current way of seeing future of technologies is the integration and synergies. And the best example was the iPhone. When they came up with the iPhone, I mean, it was really a result of all synergies between so many different technologies. Now the iPhone or any advanced mobile phone, it's something that we consider normal. But at that time, remember, 20 years ago, it was quite a breakthrough to come with a phone that was connecting the screen with touching these apps in the screen and coming to new solutions, having a video, audio, and all applications in the same technology. So future synergies could connect. The result could be unique, but connecting all those evolutions from different technologies that it's helping us accelerate. So this is why we say that we have no more linear evolution in these technologies, but more we have now exponential evolution, speed, and very fast change in these technologies. So all of them, robotics, AI, quantum, drones, robotic manufacturing, and so on, they could merge together in the creation of future technologies that will make the change faster and with a much higher impact, and also in the future of work and labor market. What is possible will change. So we had the famous Moore's law, but if we add to Moore's law artificial intelligence acceleration into what we call artificial general intelligence, plus computational sciences, plus synergies among new technologies. These four together will change what we think that is possible. And this is why at the beginning I was telling you that what we are going to see in the next 2, 3, 4 years is going to be really unique and something that humans we have not seen in the past before. So World Tech Global Scenarios 2050. Each scenario is about 10 pages of detailed cause and effect sequences that illustrate decisions. So this is the whole idea of, yes? Any question? Oh, no. Okay. So the idea with the scenarios is that we don't come up with a long book. I mean, if you write a scenario of 80 pages, nobody is going to read it. But the idea is that it's comprehensive. It's very good research, but it's not too long. It's not too short. And it should connect always cause and effect so that any reader can understand how we are going to get from now to 2050 and what will happen in each of the different scenarios. So we had these 3 scenarios, and previously we were talking about that with the director on the idea of the 3rd scenario being very, very innovative, very interesting. I really invite you all to read that, at least the 3rd scenario, and if you are happy, also the other 2. So
But
the idea,
the first one is
yes.
not bad. The first one is not bad. The second one, I decided not to read it, to not be in despair. So I decided to read only the third one. The first and the third is marvelous. I want to be there, really.
When we played,
You still have to read it because it's really amazing.
when we played the scenario exploration system, the game about the report here, we played the second scenario. So the class worked with the second one, the worst one. So we had the discussions
It
around.
was a very bad idea.
Oh.
You should really.
They
read
chose
the
it.
third one.
They voted and they chose the second.
Well, it's also a good way to think about what you should avoid. So that's also a good way to work in a scenario. I would say that this is a classical layout of a business as usual scenario, a negative scenario, and a positive scenario. But for me, the difference in this case is that even the business as usual scenario, where business as usual is really when you don't do much, you just continue with what you are doing. In this case, the business as usual scenario was, I would say, more negative than positive. So it's not the business as usual scenario when things almost remain the same. So things really change, and they change more for the bad than for the good. The point is that in the second scenario, they change for the very bad. It's even worse. But I would say that the best contribution of the Millennium Project to this discussion is that we proved that there could be a good scenario, We wanted to differentiate from the World Economic Forum that was saying that there's only a bad scenario, that more jobs will be destroyed than created. We said, no, that's not true. This could happen, but a third scenario could happen also. So that's the main contribution of this work by the Millennium Project. Yes?
Yeah, now let me this group here, it's from Petrobras, the most important oil company in Brazil, and very important company. And they this is a kind of combination between futures literacy and scenarios. Because as you can see, we had this in futures literacy as well, playing with the 3 possibilities, and then in scenarios. But it's put together both disciplines, and this is the consequence. This is a result of putting together futures literacy and the scenarios. So it's very, very interesting.
Wonderful and good to learn that many of you are working in Petrobras and in the energy sector. I was working for two big energy companies. One of them was, well, the two of them were Spanish. First one is a big utility called Iberdrola that also operates here in Brazil. I think now Iberdrola is probably the largest renewable energy utility in the world, mainly after they bought Scottish Power a few years ago. So we were working a lot with Iberdrola on future of energy scenarios. And then we were working a lot also for Repsol. Repsol, it's like Petrobras, an oil production company, and also with refinery and chemical sector activity. Smaller than Petrobras, but they're still the main petrol company in Spain. And with Repsol, we were thinking about how to apply Delphi method for better decision making in the company, especially related to technologies. Because when we are talking about technologies and when we show this kind of slides, where here we are saying all these technologies could be coming and they are going to be very relevant for many sectors like energy sector and so on. The point is, which of them is going to be the most relevant? Which of them is more relevant for my sector, especially for the oil sector, and where we should invest?
But maybe the answer is the synergies among this. This is the answer.
But you know what? When we started working with Repsol, the problem they had was we have in the table a decision to invest in a new company on biomass energy. Imagine $200 million. So, of course, in this kind of decisions, they have reports, they have analysis. Those analyses are saying this technology could be good, the returns could be those, and so on. But the point is, we have seen a lot of failure with traditional analysis in the past because things change. And this happened in Spain a lot. Many traditional energy companies invested a lot in renewable energies, and some did good and some did wrong, and some had failures. Why? Because many times they forget about the evolution of relevant aspects like regulation, technological breakthroughs, policy changing, and so on. So the idea with Repsol was, how do we integrate all those future factors through a Delphi survey with experts, with top experts that can really bring best knowledge and collective intelligence to improve the way they do decision-making related to investing in new technologies. So using foresight tools to improve decision-making on related to new technologies. So this is where we have to show that futures research and foresight is helping improve decision-making compared to traditional tools. So these are the three scenarios. And this is the outcome of the three scenarios in terms of people and work. So the whole idea was that in the labor market, people could be employed, like most of us, could be self-employed, like an Uber driver, or like anyone doing its own business activity, alone or with others. A person could be unemployed or in transition because it's maybe studying or doing a master's degree or taking a leave. Or a person could be in the informal economy, which especially in some countries, it's a big part of the people who are in the working age time. So this is the distribution of the future population aged 18 and older, according to these four categories and the different three scenarios. So the interesting part is that when we go to the third scenario, the best scenario, self-actualization scenario, we see that the big group is the one on self-employed. So this idea of the new technologies coming will promote and foster people, individuals to become somehow business people, business person who starts a new small business or larger business, but thanks to the new technology, because those new technologies were not there 15, 20 years ago. And now these technologies are enabling people to create new jobs. Well, the most well-known cases are those of Uber or other platform business organizations that are creating opportunities for the people to work. Another thing is what is the quality of those employments? If those entrepreneurs are really entrepreneurs or if they are forced entrepreneurs. That's another big question. But what we see is that technology is going to promote the idea of the people creating self-employment, and that's the whole beginning. In our world, for instance, in worker cooperatives, we are also self-employed because we are workers and employers at the same time. When you are working in a worker co-op, you're both employer and worker. So we are more or less here. But I think it would be better if we would have more cooperative self-employment than traditional self-employment. Because I have the feeling that those, for instance, that are working in Uber will be the first replaced by technology. What Uber and this kind of companies is trying to do is to create what they call the robot taxis, so that they can have autonomous vehicles that don't need any driver, and so that could be the next step. So we need to train the people, we need to help the people to really become self-employed, but for the good, with some living and living conditions and with some quality of quality conditions in the work. Yeah. So this is the distribution, and let me tell you a little bit of each of the three scenarios. I'm going to do a short summary of each of them. So we have the first scenario, the business as usual scenario. It's complicated, a mixed bag. So here, basically, what we saw is that some countries reacted to these new technologies coming and impacting the labor market, but those countries were few, not the majority, and they were not doing so much. So it's a business as usual trend projection. There is an increase in acceleration of change with both intelligence and stupidity, which means that some countries reacted, but others didn't. Others thought that this was inevitable, or that we could do nothing about it, and then they had bad consequences. Irregular adoption of advanced technology. So in this scenario, it's not like the second scenario, where we see that technology was being implemented in a much higher rate than experts thought. So here it's a more statical implementation of technology. Major employment growth is in biotech industry. So we see that some sectors are growing in terms of jobs, and some others are destroying jobs. So there is a mixed bag. There's a high unemployment where governments did not create long-range strategies. So in those countries that governments were not anticipating the impacts, we see that the unemployment was growing. There's a mixed success on the use of universal basic income, because here in this study we talk about the idea of having a universal basic income that could be feasible. Maybe today it might not make so much sense, but in the future, if we have such an impact of new technologies in the labor market, if we have so many people that are losing their jobs, And if we have an idea of having and not having a job that is different to today, because today usually we have a job all the time. When we lose that job, it's usually a short time until we get the new job. But in the future, with these scenarios, this could be different because the time of being unemployed could be longer, much longer than in the past. So this is why we need also to rethink the welfare system. And a welfare system where we are going to have tools like the universal basic income to help people who are transitioning from having a traditional job to having a new activity, maybe as an entrepreneur or whatsoever. And the giant corporations grow beyond the government control. We wrote that in 2018. Look at now, look at the reality now. Look that on Friday, Elon Musk was becoming the first trillionaire ever. And we wrote that 8 years ago. That's funny. In this government's corporate virtual 3D multipolar world of 2050. We are still in 2026. Imagine what could happen in 2050. This is a scenario one. So IoT, AI contact lens, always in virtual and augmented reality connected to the wall. This is an example of what could happen. We wrote that in 2018, and now we have these meta glasses. Have you seen these meta glasses where you have this video and you can record what you are seeing and you can connect all that to your social media and your virtual world also. So this is not very far from what we are already seeing now. And we still have 25 years ahead to 2050. So imagine what could happen in the next 25 years. The next smartphone. How is this next smartphone going to be? Maybe it could be an eye contact lens where we have the phone here in our eyes and we can make phone calls and talk to other people through our contact lens. Yes, this could happen. I mean, nobody thought that this was going to be a reality 30, 40 years ago. And we have 25 years ahead. So imagine what could happen. Human augmentation also in this first scenario, AI brain interface as a neural lace. This is very much linked to what Elon Musk was also starting with this Neuralink, these chips that you can put in your brain to try to augment your capacities. And our robots will be connected to the Internet of Things. So humanoid robots are coming faster than we thought. This is the first year ever that the humanoid robot has been faster than a human in a marathon. You saw the case in China. This has been the first year ever that this happened. So I was watching the World Cup match yesterday night, Japan and the Netherlands, and I was thinking, how long are these humans are going to be the players in the World Cup? Maybe we have a World Cup in 10 years or so with robots. So we are going to see amazing things. Then we have a scenario two. This is the most negative scenario. Political economic turmoil, a future despair. Political gridlock increases social polarization, prevents decision-making. We are seeing social polarization that we have never seen before. I think you have some elections in October, right? It's also the case in Spain. There is a lot of polarization in the US and everywhere. Political, economic, environmental migrations increase ethnic conflicts. So these are migrations due to the impact of technology in labor markets that force people to move from some countries to others. So we are going to see this kind of breakthroughs in the coming years. Governments did not anticipate impacts of artificial general intelligence, hence no strategies to address increasing mass unemployment. Let me tell you, I'm sorry to say, but this is what we are seeing right now. The governments are not seeing the picture that we are talking about artificial general intelligence. They're still in artificial narrow intelligence. And if they don't take the right point of this transition, we are going to go to this second scenario. So unemployment exploded in the 2030s, leads to 2050 in political turmoil. Financial systems cannot support aging societies, financial crisis, and world order has deteriorated into a combination of nation states, mega corporations, local militias, terrorist groups, and organized crime. This is the picture of desperate people migrating from some countries to others. This is happening already today, not so much also for a political migration or for poverty and many other reasons, but this technological transition could be another big reason for the people to migrate from some countries to others, not only from less developed countries to more developed countries. It could happen everywhere. So it will depend also on the impacts of those technologies in the different economies and the way the governments and the societies are dealing with them. In scenario 2, AI makes this combination far more powerful because we think about how we can use technology to improve, for instance, cybersecurity, which is very important, but we sometimes forget that the criminals, they are also using those technologies to do more crime in a better way. So it's like a race in between those that are trying to get us more safe and those that are trying to get more criminal actions. So what they can do is something that we have not seen in terms of cybercrime or attacking critical infrastructure like networks, energy networks, or banking systems, and so on. And of course, this is also creating not only terrorism or corruption, but also information warfare. We are not able still already today sometimes to identify what is real and what is fake. When we see an image in the TV about the Pope saying something, sometimes we don't know if that's real or not, because with AI you can really change what it looks real. So making democracy and free markets an illusion. And this is the hope. This is the scenario 3. This is what should give us hope for the next decades. If humans were free, the self-actualization economy. So governments did anticipate the impacts of artificial general intelligence in advance. So that's why we need to tell them about this. Conducted extensive research on how to phase in universal basic income systems. So in this scenario, we already had the feasibility studies to implement globally universal basic income. And we were using the benefits of new technologies to get the funding for the universal basic income. Increasing intelligence becomes a goal of education. Of course, in education, we need to change everything. This idea of going to the college, to the university for 4 or 5 years, and then stopping our learning activities, it should change totally, because this way we are not going to be able to compare ourselves to AI. So we really need to go to the old idea of lifelong learning, which is not something new. This is something that we've been discussing for generations, but we really need to implement this idea of lifelong learning. Self-employment is promoted actually in this scenario, and artists, media moguls, and entertainers help to foster cultural change from an employment culture to a self-actualization economy. So instead of looking for a job, you create the market, you create a business opportunity for the people. But we need to teach our younger generations to think about that possibility, not about just to look for a job and to have a quality of life, but also to think about creating a new business through these new technologies. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs will probably change with this idea, with this third scenario. So we usually have in the bottom the physiological needs, air, water, food, shelter, and so on. Then the safety needs, the personal security and employment, resources, health, the love and belonging, the friendship, the intimacy, the family, the sense of connections, the esteem, the respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength. And in the very top, in this scenario, we would have the self-actualization, the desire to become the most that one can be, to use technologies for the augmentation of human beings that can become whatever they want, that can really fulfill their desires, and in a world where we can help the people do what they really want to do and to be. Scenario 3, your personal AI avatar searches the web while you sleep, then wakes you up in the morning with all kinds of interesting things to do, some for income, some because they are just fun, and some that are both all with smart contacts if needed. So we wrote this 8 years ago, and today we have this still narrow AI agents that you can create with ChatGPT or with Claude or with Copilot, that you can create your own agent. That they're not avatar, they're not this idea yet, but I think it's the beginning of what we could have, each of us, this personal assistant that will help us make better decisions. So far, I would say, yes, it's funny. The technology is not that smart so far, as you know. Now, when we ask Claude, when we ask ChatGPT, sometimes we get the wrong answers. So it's not as this it should be. So it's not the perfect avatar nowadays. But remember, we are in 2026. Imagine what could be in 2050. We should have something much better with HAI.
I'll be able to sleep because I work until 2 o'clock in the morning. So my avatar is going to do all my email things and everything, and I can sleep. I would be able to.
Yes, imagine only getting rid of emails. That would be, whoa, we would earn so much time at the end of the day. You know how much time we spend in answering those emails and yeah, yes. Yeah.
Nowadays, what we can see it in most of old people, different age or people that feel old, they might not be yet, is that they economize things to do in order to have at least one for every day. So I have friends that are always busy, and then some things they say, well, tomorrow, no, tomorrow I'll have to go to the bank. And no, nothing else. It has to be another day because I have to economize to have big shoe. And then people
one
go
task per day.
yeah, not more.
No, this could, I mean, we are seeing the beginning of this because this technology could really help us if it's well designed. It could really help us reduce a lot of tax we need to do nowadays. So this could be very super positive, but we need to see how it's for the good than for messing things. Consider what these two geniuses created, Bill Gates and our friend from Apple, Steve Jobs. By 2030, 2050, millions of people could become augmented geniuses. And what could we create together? This is the whole idea of collective intelligence, having avatars, having our AI assistants that together could help us create things that we cannot create on our own. And if we connect millions of people doing that at the same time, then a lot of new intelligence could be could be created. So what we did with these 3 scenarios, as I was explaining before, we organized workshops in many of our nodes worldwide, not in all nodes, but in many of them. This was like a summary table. It is not the final one, but it's the one we used in a time because we completed the workshops in Spain, for instance, and in this table we were in the initial workshops. So we had the workshops like in Brazil. You did all the workshops, and we actually came up with reports. For instance, in Spain, that was called. You can download the report if you want. Also, the Spain report is called Trabajo Tecnología 2050. And that was done also with the support of Fundación Telefónica. So the idea in the national groups was to follow these 5 chapters. So not only to talk about labor market, about business, about jobs, but to talk about, of course, about business and labor, about science and technology, about the role of government in helping go to the best scenario, about education and learning and how to reform the whole education system with this idea. And last but not least, culture, the role of culture, how we are going to change the understanding of the future technologies and through culture, because culture is the way we understand things and we are aware of things changing. Yesterday I was visiting the Museo de Mañana. And it's such a beautiful place. I learned so much, and I liked so much the idea that you have here a museum that is talking about future things and how this could impact our everyday life. So that's also part of the role of culture. So in some workshops, some of the notes, they use the shared workshop process, where you can, through one discussion, help people go into concrete actions through doing a priority assessment process. It's from the whole to the parts, back and forth. So the parts are consistent with the whole set of strategies. So that's a well-known method of futures research. And these are the actions to address issues in the WorkTech 2050 global scenarios. So these are the 5 chapters. Those are the actions that were assessed, the 93 actions. And these were the additional suggested actions. So those went at the beginning, and then after the discussions, we got additional actions to be discussed.
The third column includes the second column, or it's just additional, or is the final?
No, I think this was additional. Yes.
93 plus 100.
Plus 118, yeah. Yes. And probably we had more. But that was the overall assessment. Because we had so many workshops that you can imagine in each country. I remember in Spain, there were already at least 50 actions, which were different to many other nodes.
So we could have more meetings in Brazil, for instance.
Yes.
Because it was not enough.
Yes,
of course.
As far as I know, you had more than one meeting in Brazil. I was not involved in the discussion in Brazil, but in the case of Spain, we had at least 5 meetings with people coming from the government, from the business sector.
To ask for additional meetings, how to do it?
You mean now?
Yes.
You can do it, sure. We need to check who was in charge of that organization. I can talk to Arnoldo and Rosa and maybe check who did the past work and how to continue now. Sure, why not?
For sure.
And this could be the perfect place because you are discussing about the future of work. So why not? Why not? So I'm going to show you a little bit some examples, not all 93 actions assessed, so that you can see an idea of what was discussed and agreed globally. So for instance, make increasing intelligence an objective of education in parallel to STEAM. You know what's STEAM? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Education, create a hybrid system of self-paced, inquiry-based learning for self-actualization, creativity, critical thinking, and human relations using new AI tools. Create international standards for narrow and general AI with governance systems to enforce them. This is what we are doing right now with the other project, with the project on the governance of the future of AI. And what we are discussing, one of the things we are discussing is that maybe similar, that these standards could follow the idea of the International Atomic Energy Agency. We were talking about that on Friday at the university. Reduce alternative cash flow projections for universal basic income to see if when it is financially sustainable. Put memes in advertisement to help the cultural transition to new forms of economics and work. Create personal AI avatars able to match people's skills and interests with income opportunities worldwide, which can make smart contracts to support self-employment. Shift education learning systems more toward mastering skills than mastering profession. So the idea of an skill-based, real skill-based education instead of an education based on contents. Public-private research should explore the cultural transition for a new social contract between the government and the citizens, who potentially could be both unemployed and augmented geniuses. So how to change the social rules so that we can really adapt the situation to the reality of the people and the application of technologies. By the way, we are now, this year, we are going to finish the project on the future of AI, the governance of the transition from narrow to artificial general intelligence. The next study we are going to launch, it's about the future of social organization, which is a very interesting thing. If you are interested, we can have a talk. Now it's the time where we are designing the research. And the idea is that all this, AI, the future of work, and so on, is going to impact so much what we understand for society in terms of politics, in terms of business organization, in terms of social organization, family, everything is changing. And it's going to change faster with these new technologies. So this is why we think it's the time to think about alternative scenarios and the consequences of those scenarios. By the way, we not always have 3 scenarios. In the future of AI, we are having 5 scenarios. So it's not always the best, the worst, and the business as usual. Sometimes we have more alternatives, like we are doing in the future of work and in the future of AI. Yeah. Art, media, entertainment leaders should engage the public in anticipating cultural changes due to potential impacts of future technologies. So top 5 actions, for instance, in education and learning: increase focus on developing creativity, critical thinking, human relations, philosophy, entrepreneurship, individual and teams. Not only individualistic approaches like Silicon Valley to become the best billionaire in a short time, but also in a team approach, art, self-employment, social harmony, ethics, and values, to know this helps to build and lead a meaningful working life. Include potential futures as we include history in the curriculum. So important for the academia and education system. Make teleeducation free everywhere, ubiquitous, lifelong learning. Shift toward mastering a skill rather than just mastering a profession. And in parallel to STEAM, create a hybrid system of self-paced, inquiry-based learning for self-actualization. Retrain teachers as coaches using new AI tools with the students. So what's the future of the teachers? Any of you? I'm also a teacher at the University of Externado in Bogota, the Masters of Futures Research, and I'm very concerned about our future. Is there any future for traditional teachers in an AI time? That's a big question. What is our role as teachers? Government and governance. Establish a national independent technology forecasting and assessment agency to inform legislative, judicial, and executive functions of government about the future technology and their impacts. We don't do so much this, so governments need to improve the way they understand what's happening. The government, employers, and the labor union should cooperate to create lifelong learning models, including forecasts of future skills. We are working in a European network of regional labor market observatories. In Europe, it's very interesting. We have more than 400 regional labor market observatories all over Europe, not at national level, but also at regional level. And we do a lot of exchanges of best practices, conferences, and events to learn from each other and see how we can improve the understanding of the labor market. Study how to prevent future conflicts between technological augmented humans via AI, genetics, electronics, or other means, and non-augmented citizens, because we are going to have a gap in between those that are augmented and those that are not augmented. So, yes?
What's via? What is via?
Via means through AI, genetics, through, yes. So these technologically augmented humans could be through AI, through genetics, through with these neural links and or chips and so on. Training programs for politicians before governing. Who votes for this? Is this something we can do? Yes? Okay. By 2050, introduce a global system for science and technology knowledge sharing. This is also quite interesting that, I mean, we have international organizations for sharing best practices on science and technology, but in many cases, they look more to the past than to the future. I think they are very interested in leading governments on this, like Japan, that, you know, Japan does technological Delphi surveys every 5 years. It's like a panel of experts so that they can forecast what are the relevant technologies for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And they have been doing it consistently since the 60s. So not most of the governments don't do that technological forecasting to decide what are their technological roadmaps at national level. Business and labor. Develop ways for companies and employees to create ethical, aesthetic, and social value in addition to economic and material value. So this is something that we need to think about also. And personally, I don't think the current ESG, you have heard of the ESG, economic, social, and governance criteria. I think that's not enough. I think that's more greenwashing than real analysis of what is good and what is not good. So we need to go a little bit farther on that. Establish labor, business, government, next technologies, future job skills and retraining databases. Define a new social contract of workers' right in a transactional and global economy. So this should be also part of the new research we are launching on the future of social organization. What are the future social contracts when we have AI everywhere? What is going to be the new social contract? Create observatory or horizon scanning online platforms that update employment and technology trends along with discussions of future of employment. and manage companies like professional networks rather than as static hierarchies. Because we always talk about the governments, the public sector, but also in the private sector, we need to change the rules a little bit to, in this future scenario of technologies and AI being everywhere, how we are going to run the companies and the business organizations themselves. By the way, if you are interested in the future of business organizations, we are right now doing a global Delphi survey on this. Open to researchers, to people who are in smaller or bigger companies. If you are interested in the issue, please let me know. I can send you the questionnaire. And if you complete the questionnaire, you will get the whole analysis of the results. So the questionnaire is open until the end of June. And please let me know if you are interested. Maybe we can go through, I will send information to Yuri and maybe we can share it with all of you if you are interested. The questionnaire is both in Spanish and English, so should be easy to answer. Science and technology, directors of national science labs and other leaders in the science and technology community should devote more effort to making current science and future technology understandable to general public. That's an issue also. I mean, many times we think that everybody is talking about this, and that's not true. So we need to bring this to the public discussion. Create national policies and standards for the Internet of Things that stresses future cybersecurity systems. Cybersecurity is, as you know, a big thing. Forecast synergies among the full range of new technologies. National science and technology leaders should be part of the national team that creates, regularly updates, and implements the country's national science and technology strategy. And science and technology and legal communities should collaborate nationally, internationally to establish legal frameworks and treaties that anticipate future liability requirements that can deter tech hazards and encourage technology. So it's very important that we have the whole cooperation with the legal community to have some guarantees that this is going to be done in the right way. And last but not least, culture, arts, and media. Repurpose libraries. Do libraries make sense today? Of course, but probably we need to repurpose them with another mission so that they can be alive in a future advanced AI scenario. Repurpose libraries, all post offices, movie theaters, lifelong learning, cultural exchanges, and next tech digital connection places. So can we use all those places to start a new conversation? Because we don't go to the cinema theaters so much. Now we watch Netflix at home. What we do with, I mean, if we do nothing, these buildings, these beautiful buildings will become top residential places. Yes, Jano? You go to the cinema. Wonderful. This is what we need. And when you go to the cinema, you see that all theaters are full, or is it?
Yeah, not really, but yeah, I go to some expensive movie theaters.
Okay.
So they are
maybe the
more
problem is the
comfortable,
price.
perhaps.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But my son just went into he was in Texas, and he went to a very old cinema, and the first thing was he didn't fit on the chairs because the chair was too narrow, and like an airplane, and also the.
And how much is the cinema in this theater? More or less.
He said what in Texas was very expensive. In California, in Palo Alto, there is an old one that he usually go. Maintain the old theater.
Yes,
so
yes.
it was cheap. But this one in Texas, no foundation. Yeah. So it's very expensive.
Yes, also the cinema was and is very expensive in Spain, for instance. And I think there was a big impact to the industry of the theaters and cinemas due to COVID. Because after COVID, people already took the decision to watch more movies in their places than outside in the cinemas. So, for instance, in Spain, the government was creating an incentive. 1 day a week, especially elderly people could take a ticket for only €2, which is like $2.5 or so on, which is not cheap, but it's cheaper than regular price is maybe $7, $8. So this was helping a little bit, but still, yes.
No, I would like just to compare prices in Europe and here. We can have a €10 ticket for cinemas here, 10 or 12 euro ticket. 12.
10, 12 euros a ticket for the cinema here.
Yes.
That's much more expensive than in Europe.
And the popcorn is even higher price than the tickets.
Yeah.
The popcorn it can be more.
It'll be more.
60, 70 reais. Yes,
70
can reach
reais.
the, yeah.
You really need to work on this.
And if you go to a cheaper
Yes.
cinema, okay, then people will be using their
Yes.
cell phone during the film. They will talk. They took lots
It's
of.
not the proper one. It's not quality. Yes. Okay. Okay. So that's a pity. I mean, that's so the Brazilian plan should include this action. Yeah. Produce movies, TV, computer games, etc., to show how augmented and non-humans could evolve without prejudice and conflict. So not having a simplistic conversation, but trying to go in depth to what could happen and open the debate to the public. We are finishing. It's not that much that I need to tell you about. Support joint cultural activities with other countries that reinforce new values that help the transition to the rapidly changing future. Establish arts media alliances with thems, self-employment as new norm, technology to augmented human capacity rather than replace humans, self-actualization economy, invest in what replaces you. So we need to change the way the cultural world is telling us about technology also. What we had until now was more like Robocop or Terminator than another thing. So we need to change that narrative a little bit and expand the purpose of work to self-actualization. Those are the top proposals for culture, art, and media. So it's going to be the first global timeout to stop and rethink everything. Well, this was also a little bit what we said with COVID, and it didn't happen. You remember when we were at home during COVID time, and we thought that it was the first time we were going to change everything, and we didn't change so much. But that's an opportunity also. Disasters in nature, new growth occurs. After World War II, we got the United Nations and many forms of multinational cooperation. So maybe we can use these new technological breakthroughs to change a little bit their system or social system. But we need to do a lot of things in between. Yes.
I think we should start to look at Ebola as a weapon that's being kept in a laboratory. It means the area where it is kept in Africa, just to be used when it's necessary. I don't think it's being looked at scientifically for governments in the world as it should be. I think they know it's there and they know they might use it and there are countries who have a vaccine against it. we knew when the American nurse came and took the vaccine and went back in the
vaccine.
States. Yeah, but they don't use it there in Africa. They don't want to repress it.
Yes.
Just-
I agree. I was going to travel to the Congo Republic in January, and the event meeting was cancelled. Now I saw the Ebola breakthrough, and it's really, I mean, and especially the Ebola breakthrough in a time where the World Health Organization is in the lowest of many years, due to the U.S. government reducing the funding for the World Health Organization. So this is a big issue, and of course we were doing scenarios about the COVID pandemic, and our forecast is that we could have more and worse pandemics in the future. So we need to get ready, and we need to use those early warning systems to try to anticipate what could happen and be ready for a new global pandemic that could happen. Yeah. So this is the Millennium Project Futures research that we have done so far since 1994. So a lot of good research on different issues, like on cooperatives or hidden hunger. Many issues that we changed. And after Future of Work and Technology, we are completing now the study on the future of AI, the transition, global governance of the transition from narrow to general AI. And the next one will be the future of social organization. So if any of you is interested in the Brazilian node, we can have some talks about working together on that too. And in the Millennium Project, we always say that we like going beyond doing diagnosis, because doing diagnosis is good, like the World Economic Forum does, but we want to go a little bit farther and think about long-term strategies. Like, for instance, when we are talking about climate change, energy, land use, health, water, ethics, I mean, we have a lot of short-term strategies to address those issues, but we've been in the Millennium Project more than 20 years speaking about the meat without animals. Because, you know, the animals, especially the cows, the gases that the cows produce, they are the largest greenhouse gas producers. So the meat industry is related totally to climate change. Actually, a few years ago, we completed a study for the European Commission on the priorities of the next framework program, research and technology framework program in Europe. And the idea was to do an assessment from the perspective of what we call the water, energy, and food security nexus. So if you look at it from the water, energy, and food security nexus, which should be the research, development, and technological priorities for the next years? You know what the experts said? The experts, the international panel of experts, they told us that one of the first priorities should be changing the diets. Because if we don't change the diets, then climate change is going to go worse. And meat industry and food industry is one of the more important producer of that impact. Let me tell you another example before I give you the floor. I remember 15 years ago, I took our CEO, Jerome Glenn, to San Sebastian, to my city. And San Sebastian is well known for the gastronomy. And I took him to a special place that we have there in our university, Mondragon University, that is called the Basque Culinary Center. When I took Jerry to the Basque Culinary Center in 2012, he started talking to the researchers about meat without animals. And they were looking at him like animals, like saying, what are you telling me about? We are gastronomy, meat without animals, that's crazy. What happened after 2012? In San Sebastian, we created a new startup. A couple of entrepreneurs created a new startup on laboratory meat. They started 15 years ago or so. It was a crazy innovative idea. Nowadays, they are building in San Sebastian their first factory to produce laboratory meat. And let me tell you the end of the story and the connection to all of you. This startup, which has been very successful, they have very good prospects for the future because this could be something very profitable, was bought, I think it was 3-4 years ago, but by the main meat producer of Brazil. So you see the connection now? I think it's called JS, yes.
Perhaps to close it down.
They bought the majority stake of that startup. Yes.
Perhaps they wanted to close it down. The competition. Yeah.
Or like Petrobras or many other traditional energy producers, they want to diversify in the future energy systems. Like when you are investing in renewables, in solar, in wind, you really want to diversify. Your main business is in oil, but you want to diversify.
Ibon, what I was going to talk is about 20 years ago, or a bit less, there was a PhD thesis from Columbia University. It became a book by the Penguin book editor. It's called The Family Business. And the thesis is that she shows, the author shows that how we normally the industry try to add value to the food. Because if you take like, let's say 10 kilos of rice, nobody can eat 10 kilos of rice in one meal, right? But if you feed that rice or other cereal to a cattle, and then you get a beef of 100 to 200 grams of beef that you can sell it every meal. You can sell it. People who can pay it. So there's all the model that shows that, for example, the pet food is another way to just put. So she shows that for a rich country, dog or cat eat more meat, eating more
a human
and uses more land for alimenting than the people in some poor countries.
And this is why the water, energy, and food security nexus makes total sense, because if you only look at it from the water perspective or the energy perspective or the food security perspective, it's different than if you look at the whole triangle. So total sense, yes. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thank you so much, Ibon. Sure. Yes. Okay, so a 15-minute break, then we'll come back.
Esse é o meu nome, o senhor tem que estar no meu.
Você fala com ele, você sai, aí sua nota cai, você volta. Esse da hora é muito claro. Meu óculos eu acho que olha, meu óculos é outro diferente. Muito de verdade.
Pessoal, vamos voltar para a gente poder ter uma sessão de perguntas. Prefere sentar? Ok. Gorgeous. Ana. Posso voltar? Ok. Pessoal. Okay, so thank you again, Ibon, for your very interesting and talk. We would like to have a few questions now. I will start with our students here in the class and also those who are watching us from Zoom. So maybe if anyone has a question, they can ask Ibon now.
Yes, I would like to start. Sorry, let me introduce myself, Marcelo. I work at the strategy sector of Petrobras. And you mentioned about the nodes and networks and the five stakeholders. Thinking about how more and more decentralized the political and social sectors are, how better can the Millennium Project and all the stakeholders, as Petrobras, the universities, work as nodes? I mean, to implement the proposals for, let's say, the third scenario, that's the best scenario. How can we best make actions and coordinate ourselves for this scenario?
Yes, good question. I think if we really want to go to the third scenario, the best scenario, both globally or nationally, regionally, this cooperation among stakeholders is essential. If we don't get this alliance in between private sector with Petrobras, the government, the federal government, and the state governments, academia, universities, NGOs. I mean, all the stakeholders, it's going to be difficult because we are not going to get to the third scenario by chance. If we do nothing or if we do too little too late, then we will go to either the first or the second scenario. So that cooperation is essential. How to get that? So how to get the interest of different stakeholders together when they could have opposite interests, like it happens many times. I think long-term thinking and long-term planning helps more than short-term. When we work with a short-term view, it's easier to get these conflicts. It's easier to get these different interests. Whereas when we are having these long-term goals, it's usually much easier to get these commitments, these shared visions, these shared targets, because it's always easier to agree in the long term than in the short term. But first, I think the starting point should be the awareness raising. If stakeholders are not aware about this challenge, then no chance. I mean, we need to first make them aware, then work in a good diagnosis together. There are very good features tools for that, for scenario planning, for exchanging with the stakeholders, for creating this dialogue, and then and then agreeing in the long-term strategy. That's it. I mean, you need to have Petrobras, you need to have the private sector, government, NGOs, academia, even UN organizations like UNESCO or others involved, and then agreeing in a strategy with concrete goals.
Do we have any other questions here? Okay, we have
Can I ask
two
a question?
questions. She also has a question.
Hi, I'm Carla. I work at the refining technology area in Petrobras. My question is connected to Marcelo's question, but it's more in the sense of what you said, awareness, increasing awareness of the changes we'll face in the future, but how to increase the sense of empowerment in people, because I think now people are becoming more and more aware of the changes we face, but there are so many bad things for the future that people feel they don't have power to change it. And so it brings some kind of apathy. People don't feel they can change, so that, or at least the changes we will not see in our lifetime or even in our children's lifetime. So how to engage people to work for this future they won't see and they don't feel they have power to change.
Thank you. That's a big issue and big question and not easy to manage. In my experience, first you need someone taking the leadership. Like when we were doing these work tech workshops in Spain, it was a combination in between private sector with Telefónica, that could be similar to Petrobras in this case, together with some representatives from the government and people coming from different sectors. But there was someone taking that leadership, in that case, Fundación Telefónica, because someone needs to invite the rest of the people. And then you need to help the participants be aware of the need of their contribution, showing the topic as a complex topic. So you are not inviting them to decide what is going to be the motto for the next carnival in Rio, which is a complex issue, but we are talking about the future of the whole labor market system, which, as we know, it's connected to the education system, to the business, to the science and technology ecosystem, to the public policies. It's so complex and so diverse that this entity doing the leadership needs to engage the rest of the participants to make them aware of the need of their involvement in such a complex issue. And then it's just about having methodologies and tools to facilitate, to enable the discussion and the agreement on the longer term strategy. I think in the case of Spain, it worked quite well. And then we used the same idea. Also, we were working on another project with the Spanish government on the impact of AI in the working safety and security conditions, which is another big issue because, the implementation of AI in our work for everyone has a lot of safety and security concerns. And so we created the same idea, this time led by the Ministry of Labor in Spain. And we had a dialogue and a conversation with the stakeholders from the private sector, the unions, research and development, academia, insurance companies, and so on. And they were very much engaged because we told them from the very beginning, and the ministry did, that the conclusions and the proposals from those groups were going to be the long-term strategy plus the contribution for the next action plan, the national 4 years action plan on safety and security, working safety and security issues. And this was at the end also coming from a European initiative that was similar. So everybody was feeling comfortable with that idea of having someone having the leadership, having the right means, and then knowing that the mission was to create something for contributing to the national strategy in the long term and in the short and medium term.
Someone over there? Okay, another question here.
So I had the impression that the scenarios and the proposals presented are more connected to the philosophy of life related to productivity that most of us are focused today. And I want to ask if you have the impression that other ways or other philosophy of life promoting the welfare state in different ways than today could increase and then result in different proposals.
You mean related to the welfare state?
Yeah, different way of enjoying the life, not
Yes.
so much connected to the productivity or this model that we already experience today.
Yes, this is why we want to start this research on the future of social organization, because we think the previous one, this one on future of work and tech, was more on the technology and business perspective of what could happen if more jobs were going to be created or replaced and so on. But we were not going so much in depth into what are the social implications. If people are not working so much, I mean, what does the society want for these people to do? What is going to be the new social contract? Right now we have some rules, but those rules will probably not apply to the new situation with a disruptive application of AI. So we need to rethink society, and as a result of that, we need to rethink the welfare system also. But the whole idea behind, I think, it's that, especially in the best scenario, that we can use technological advances to benefit the people, to make people's life better, so that they can work even less or more, it's up to them, but they can really work on what they like. They can really develop their skills, but this will not happen just because we say it. It needs some strategy, and it needs some addressing the technology to have it as a beneficial thing. And then, of course, we will need to rethink the whole social system. If we are not working so much, I mean, maybe it's not an idea of 5 days working, 2 days rest. Maybe it's another way. Those pilots that are being done now to reduce the working time, I think they are still in the old paradigm. They are still in the paradigm that we have today. Whereas for the new paradigm, we need to think a little bit more. This is why we think it's a good idea to work on a scenario. So what could be that new social paradigm that we are going to face?
I have another question here, then Professor Jean, please.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Thales. I'm not part of the Petrobras class. I was invited by Professor Ana Célia. Thank you for that, and thank you for your time. My question is, it seems like, if I understand correctly, there are 3 scenarios presented, and the very last one, you mentioned the self-actualization economy, and you used the example of Uber drivers. So it looks like in 2050, there will be 3 billion people in jobs like jobs that are self-created, such as Uber drivers. Is this the most optimistic scenario? Is this truly the desirable future? By 2050, we're going to have 3 billion people working as Uber drivers or something like that. And if that's the case, then the question becomes, is this like a genuine form of autonomy or just a sophisticated way of another labor precarization, you know?
Yes, good question. I think I also mentioned when I showed the distribution of the working population, and I mentioned Uber, and I said that the self-employed group could be working in jobs like Uber, but I also said that my take is that companies like Uber, big tech corporations, will try to create non-human based activities. So in Uber, I think this company is going to try to have these robot taxis as soon as possible. As soon as possible, because they only care.
In China, it's very impressive.
Yes, they only care about the profits. So, but this doesn't mean that all self-employment will be like that. For instance, I was also giving the example of Mondragon or cooperatives. We are self-employed, and we are in a lot of high technology activities, including AI. But the difference between Mondragon and Uber is that we have, first of all, some principles based on solidarity. So in our ecosystem with 70,000 people, if some business activities are doing wrong, we help them transition into other activities within the federation so that we don't lose any job. Whereas in a traditional big tech corporation, they try to get us, these big corporations, they try to get the less employment they can, because the less employees, the more the profits. In our understanding, it's the more employment, still today, the more employment, the more profits. So I think we can really think about alternative business models, and this is why I also invite all of you to take part in this Delphi survey that we are launching, that could fit this idea of self-actualization economy with having a lot of self-employment, but at the same time not being poor quality, not being people who are desperate to work, which I think is more the second or first scenario, by having alternative business models. Like we have in Mondragon. It already worked for almost 80 years.
Well, regarding the question of our colleague here, of how to try to make people more conscious of what's coming, and that's a way you mentioned as well. Of course, it's interesting to make people conscious of the what's coming or what might come if you don't do anything. But perhaps by talk too much about the AI takeover will help it to happen. So it will naturalize it, the second scenario. So perhaps I have to be careful not always talk about what may come, and then people should prepare, but not perhaps prepare for the worst scenario, because the worst scenario, very few people will survive with their own preparation. So what do you think about that?
Thank you. I take your point that sometimes when you start, well, first of all, Jerome Glenn always reminds us that futures research and futures thinking is about helping you discover what you don't know that you don't know. So today, when we see that a lot of foresight and futures research is based on trend analysis and horizon scanning to tell you something that you already know, then that's not the last purpose of futures thinking, because you are somehow assuming that the future will be a continuation of the past. I think in our work, both in the Work Tech 2050 and on the AGI governance research, we are trying to say we are not considering that AGI will happen for sure in a way. We are trying to extend the idea that AGI could happen in many different ways. It's not about saying, because many times the simplistic debate is about with this idea of the posing AI and saying, well, if AI is bad, let's pause AI, let's stop AI. I think this is a bit simplistic because I mean, AI has also very good things. So it's more about imagining what could happen with AGI and trying to get the best of it. And we are quite frank when we are talking, for instance, in these scenarios that we could go, and this is what it happens. It's actually happening right now, that we could go to a world of mega corporations or big tech guys taking over and so on. So we are saying that this could happen, and it's actually happening in some way. So it's not so much about saying something that you already think is going to be predeterministic, but about imagining that a complex issue could evolve in a very different ways. It's not going to be good or bad. It's going to be very, very multipolar. And so this should help us first identify what we don't know. And second, design what we should work on to go to the best alternative.
Let me ask my question. This initiative about the future of organizations, I wouldn't say social organizations, because this could be restrictive. I mean, this could be a restriction. Organizations in general, the future of organizations in general. I think this is extremely interesting, important, fundamental. And I was thinking about Mondragon as a kind of case study or pilot to start to think about the future of organizations. And on the other hand, I think that some issues, some ideas that we have been building about organizations should be revised at the light of the future of organizations. For instance, innovation, the meaning of innovation. What will be an innovation out of the co-creation process with artificial intelligence? What is innovation really? What is new? One very important issue. The second one, I would say, compulsive sequences in technology. Would the technologies follow compulsive sequences to go further or not? Secondary innovation, another issue that we have been using a lot in innovation studies. What is a secondary innovation? This will continue to be important. This is continue to be a question or an issue. And also routine. What is routine in the future of organizations? What is coordination? What will be coordination? Modern governance, coordination at the first moment, coordination, and then dynamic capabilities. So several important theoretical ideas or issues that we have been using all the time, they must be revised. So in the sense of thinking about the future of organizations, we'll have to start, but our nowadays comprehension what an organization is. So, but I think that we should start by this example of Mondragon. Mondragon as a case study, as a, I don't know, as a super case, what is going on Mondragon that is new, and it could be the future of organizations.
Super good. Thank you very much for this suggestion, and we are very happy to contribute to the debate from our perspective in Mondragon and in the cooperative movement. I think the idea with the research is more linked to the concept of future of the society. And part of that is the future of the organizations, either business organizations, non-profit, I don't know, family, public organizations, all organizations, because the whole concept is about the future of society. A future of society in a new world where we will have humans and humanoid robots. And that's going to change a lot of things, interactions. I remember in South Korea, they were discussing about regulating human and non-human marriage. Because this is things that they discuss in South Korea, not in Spain, and I don't know about Brazil, but they discuss those things in Korea. I mean, this is why we need to rethink the future of society, because this is coming and has very good things, very bad things. So it's totally related to this technological disruption, and of course then there is a lot of issues related to organizations, public and private. Let's say organizations, as you said, for instance, innovation, you mentioned. Innovation, we've been discussing so much time about open innovation approaches. For me, now we have no choice. In this new disruptive technology ecosystem, we are going to need totally open innovation approaches. Nobody is going to, in my view, nobody is going to be able to innovate in a disruptive way alone. So we need to change that understanding too, in my mind. Yes.
Thank you, Ibon. Do we have any more questions here or on Zoom?
Just adding something about what you said about the marriage between human and non-human. Okay, I can imagine, well, we saw in many films, robots, men or women, which can be very attractable, can be like very humanoid. But in the short term, what we already see is people get involved emotionally by an AI, one for chatbot. And even there was...
Is doing what, sorry?
People get involved emotionally and in love.
Yes,
with a chatbot.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was even one company who had to reduce it because it was getting too addictive and so on. Huh?
Yes.
But then suppose you make a contract with one company, yeah, because the problem, one of the problem that if you get in love to AI, it's suppose it was disconnect next day, right? So I can imagine you have a marriage contract with the company, say, okay, you are not allowed to switch this off or change the rules of engagement, yeah, for the next 20 years or so. Yeah, I think this is now.
Yes, it's how to divorce from AI.
Okay, so maybe a final question, Ibon. I think it's interesting to see how after 8 years, as you said, some of the things that you anticipated in the report, they are happening right now. Some are good, some are bad. But I would like to ask you in general, which one of the scenarios do you think we are moving closer to, since we are almost a decade after this study, and as you said, we have 25, 24 years until we reach 2050. I know that we have the scenarios only to reflect about the future, but also to discuss. But I'd like to ask you if you think we are closer to one of them, or are we moving to the better scenario, to the worst scenario?
In my personal view, I think because we did not complete any in-depth assessment of where we are right now, but my personal impression is that we are, if I would have to choose one scenario, I would say scenario one, where things are not too messy, but are messing a little bit. And we, in the scenarios, we were also, it's not always only depending on us who are taking the decisions or starting the actions. Many times it's also depending on how fast technology is evolving, because we could have different types of speeds on this technology disruption. So in the second scenario, which is the worst, the background was that technology was going to speed up more than the experts thought. And this is happening a little bit, but probably we have not seen the impacts yet. But my impression is that we are starting seeing them. So my take is that we are closer to a scenario one. And if this disruption continues speeding up, we may get closer to a scenario two. And right now, I don't see, I mean, if we look at the actions we suggested, I don't see majority of governments or majority of countries or societies thinking and implementing those measures yet. Look at the education system. It's pretty much the same as it was 8 years ago. And I see that some universities in Latin America, for instance, are saying, look, I mean, if this continues like this, it might be the end of our university, because people are going to use ChatGPT to learn. And how are we going to sell a very expensive master if it's not that everything is in the internet, but you can interact, learn, ask, and so on with a chatbot, very advanced chatbot that it's almost an avatar. So those universities, for instance, some private universities told us, we don't know how to do our next strategic planning because it's a very challenging time. So that's why I think we are in scenario one, business as usual. And if we see that we don't react on time, we might go to second scenario. The impacts on employment so far are not so clear. But we start seeing some tricky things of big layoffs due to AI. I mean, this could transition from a scenario 1 to 2 if we don't react on time. Yes.
Okay, so I would like to thank you again, Ibon, for your time, for your presentation, and for kindly sharing with us your work and with the Millennium Project's work. Before we close, I was reminded by Rosa that we are going to have an important event in Brazil about the future, which is the Brazil Futures Forum. The Millennium Project is one of the partners for this forum. It's going to take place on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of August in Rio de Janeiro at the Museu do Amanhã, which
Please repeat again the dates.
the 22nd, 23rd, 23 and 24 of August.
August.
Yes, so
Okay.
just to invite you,
Legal.
Museu do Amanhã.
Okay, with Fábio Scarano.
Yeah, I think so, and Rosa and
And Rosa.
me and many other people.
Excellent.
Yes,
So are coming back to in this August? Okay.
I'll send you the link and the Zoom. And so thank you for everyone that's watching us on YouTube and also for all of our students here and on Zoom. Thank you again, Ibon, and have a nice day.
Goodbye.